Hi, I'm Christina Applegate.
And I'm Jamie-Lynn Sigler.
And this is
Messy. Welcome to Messy, guys. We have such a wonderful episode for you today. Today we have who's been called the most popular psychiatrist in America. He's a board-certified child and adult psychiatrist and the CEO of Amen Clinics with 11 locations nationwide. He's a 12-time New York Times bestselling author and researcher with over 90 published scientific articles that have led to groundbreaking brain imaging research in multiple fields. With over 10 million social media followers, his mission is simply to end mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. His new book coming out this December in 2025 is called Change Your Brain, Change Your Pain, where he reveals that pain is not just a body problem, but a brain problem. He talks about how pain can rewire our brain, trapping it into a vicious doom loop, keeping a person stuck in suffering, sadness, and stress. Well, guess what? No more. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm so excited because I can't wait to listen to everything you have to say, because the brain, it's, for at least for Jamie and myself and those of us with MS, is a huge part of our disease. But now I'm just going to be quiet for just a second.
Well, we wanted to first with you, Dr. Amen, about talking about your new book, which it feels really pertains to a lot of our listeners and us and what we live with. And so if it's okay, can I hand it over to you and sort of be able to give our listeners a brief synopsis about what this book is about, and then we can get into more detail?
I got tired of living in pain. when I really went, okay, I'm done with this. What am I missing? So I have 11 clinics around the United States, and I'm a psychiatrist by training. And for the last 34 years, I've been looking at the brain and how it works on a daily basis. But the last couple of years, it just seemed it was my hip, it was my neck, it was my knees, it was my foot. And I'm like, all right, something is going on in my body. And as I looked at our scans in people who had chronic pain and also learned about the work of John Sarno, I put those things together and I went, if you have pain for more than a couple of weeks, it actually doesn't just live in your back. It's also living in the physical functioning of your brain. And that if I'm going to get out of pain, and I've been out of pain for, I guess, a year and a half now. If I'm going to get out of pain, what I have to do first is fix my brain. And I need to calm down. In the book, I talk about the doom loop. The doom loop is when you first start to feel pain, for whatever reason. It could be social rejection. It could be an injury from playing basketball. It triggers what is called the feeling pathway in your brain. It goes through deep in your brain and then is anchored in your parietal lobes, the top back part of your brain. But if it frightens you, so for example, you get an MRI and the MRI says your back is messed up, well, now that triggers the fear pathway in the brain, and it smears the pain with dread and awfulness. And then I read this statistic that just blew me away. I'm 71. That 70% of people my age who have no pain at all have abnormal back MRIs. And I'm like, but that MRI causes so many people to get surgery when the pain might not be in just in their back, it might be in their brain. And so it's the trigger of the doom loop, which activates the suffering pathway, which then triggers, I call them ants, automatic negative thoughts and negativity, which then feeds muscle tension, which the muscles then clamp down and accelerate the pain, which then leads to bad habits, which hurt your brain. And you end up in this loop of a cycle that just causes perpetual suffering. And so to get out of the doom loop, the book, I think the stars of the book are the doom loop and the healing loop. It's like, okay, well, how do I get out of this? And I love this phrase every day. You win, no pain, or you learn. That you start to get really curious about what makes my pain better and what makes my pain worse. So you win or you learn, you calm down the suffering circuits, and you can do it with supplements. There's certain medications. I mean, isn't it interesting that Sammy is a supplement, S-adenosylmethionine, works for depression, and it also works for chronic pain. And we have medications like Cymbalta, which is FDA approved for depression. It's also FDA approved for chronic pain. Why is that? It's because they run on the same circuits in the brain. And so you calm down the suffering pathway. You learn how to kill the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. There's nowhere in school we were taught actually to discipline our minds. I was 28 years old in my psychiatric residency at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C., when one of our professors said, you have to teach your patients not to believe every stupid thing they think. And I'm like, but I believe every stupid thing I think, right? I mean, I've never been trained to actually manage the chatter in my head. And I'm the second son of a large Lebanese family, and there was a lot of negative chatter. But once I disciplined my mind, I thought so much better. I was so much happier. And then calm your muscles. And part of that section, not only calm your muscles, you have to learn how to express the rage that's actually feeding a lot of this. And then brain healthy habits to perpetuate the healing cycle. And I'm very excited because my cardiologist is having dinner with him. I'm actually going to have lunch with him later today. And right after I finished my book, we were having dinner and he told me he was going to have back surgery. And I'm like, well, tell me about it. He said, well, I've had back pain for the last 4 years and it just is ruining my life. And my MRI is abnormal and I think I'm going to do the surgery. And I said, well, can I send you my book and you tell me what you think of it? And then I told him about this study that 70% of people my age have abnormal MRIs that have no pain. And 2 weeks later, he calls me and he's like, the pain's 90% gone. And then I talked to him 2 months after that. He said, I have no pain. Because what it was, the pain wasn't in his back, it was in his brain. And it got stuck. And he's the nicest person. And if you read John Sarno's work, he was a pain doctor at NYU. He said, pain gets to the good people. He calls them goodists because they can't express their rage. And that's totally me. Like, I've been a maverick in my field and I have a lot of rage. having been demonized because I want to do things differently. And partly it was because I was flawed. I wanted people to like me, and I don't like conflict. I've lost both of those. But you can see how that repressed anger comes out in your muscles, which then accelerates the pain in your brain.
I wanted to speak on this before we get to a different subject. As the girls and I were talking earlier, I've been weaning off of this medication that was given to me because of chronic stomach pain. And I've always called it my ball o' trauma, because anytime I would get stressed, I'd start throwing up. And we've talked about this on the podcast, so this isn't news to our listeners, but you could even just put your hand over and not even touch me, and I would start to get sick or start to cry. So finally, this GI doctor put me on a medication that formerly was used as an antidepressant, but they've been using it for GI work, which makes so much sense, right? Because we're talking then about it lessening the trauma in the brain, and then the pain. My pain went away. The problem is that I started to go a little nutter butter. So I'm trying to get off of it right now. And it's called Elavil, and I don't care if anyone gets mad at me about it. But I wanted to know what you think of that, and how that affects sorry, it's hard for me to talk because I'm getting off of it. Like it's made me nutters, and I don't like it. So
Elavil is one of the original antidepressants, and it's a very effective antidepressant. The problem is it has a lot of side effects, and it can make you sleepy, it can give you dry mouth, it can give you constipation. But those things are way better than having depression. And it's sort of the point of the book.
I don't have depression. I have the stomach thing, but I guess I do have depression because it's my ball of trauma, right? But
or
right,
the
okay.
stomach thing activated the suffering circuits in your brain. And what Elavil does is calms that down. So even if you're not depressed, you're in pain, and they run on the same circuits in the brain. And I just think that's so interesting.
Yeah, I love that I said I'm not depressed, and then my part of my brain said, "Shut up, lady." Yes, you are. Weirdo. You've got so much going on. Please, lady. Who you fooling?
Well, I don't really like the term depression because I think of it like chest pain. Nobody gets a diagnosis of chest pain. Why? Because it doesn't tell you what's causing it, and it doesn't tell you what to do for it. And depression is this cluster of symptoms like belly pain that it's not telling you why you have it. And from the imaging work I do, you can be depressed if your brain is too low in activity. You can be depressed if it's too high in activity. You can be depressed from grief and loss, or from a head injury, or you can be depressed because you had COVID, and COVID caused inflammation of these circuits. And, even with things like MS in my mind, or depression, it's like, well, why do you have it? Right? Why is your immune system mad at you so that it sees your body as something foreign? And, and it's like, well, is it repressed rage? Is it your gut bugs aren't right? Is it your food? Why does hyperbaric oxygen help with MS?
Support for Messy comes from Hexclad. The leaves are turning, the air is getting crisp, and your kitchen? Well, it's about to be the heart of it all, whether it's a Sunday roast or a cozy dinner party or baking marathons with the kids. Fall is when the real cooking begins, and your cookware should rise to the occasion. That's why you need HexClad. It is the hybrid cookware that blends stunning design with pro-level performance. It has this patented nonstick surface and stainless steel durability, which makes it easy to go from searing a pork tenderloin to simmering your favorite butternut squash soup without skipping a beat or scrubbing for hours. This cleans so easy. They also have Japanese Damascus steel knives, which are paper thin. They slice apples, perfect for pies or for stews. They glide through crusty bread without tearing it into a million messy pieces. They slice like a dream. They feel amazing in your hand. And yes, even Gordon Ramsay swears by them.
Okay, so I got my HexClads recently, and we use them. We do this Friday night dinner thing that I think I've talked about with my friend Jessica. And it was the best cooking experience I think we've had, where the food tasted better. It was so easy to mix. That we were making pasta and sauce and all this stuff. It was incredible. I seriously love HexClad.
Every HexClad product is backed by a lifetime warranty, so you're not just investing in better tools, you are building a kitchen that's ready for whatever the season throws your way. So fall is the season for cozy gatherings and home-cooked meals, so why not treat yourself to the best cookware and knives to make it all a breeze? For a limited time only, our listeners get 10% off your order with our exclusive link. Just head to hexclad.com/messy. Support our show and upgrade your fall kitchen at hexclad.com/messy. Make sure to let them know we sent you. Cheers to stylish and stress-free fall hosting with HexClad. When you talk about the repressed rage, I mean, we've talked in great detail about this, and I think, to hear it from you and feel like it's science-backed to understand that, repressed emotions physically manifest in the body into, disease. And, I can think back to my entire childhood of repressing my anger and my feelings for fear of not being liked and wanting to avoid conflict and things like that. But I can think also later in my life, in my journey with MS, when you talk about, like feeling nervous and muscles grabbing, it's a dance, and I feel it physically in my body, but I've also felt other times where I've been in complete joy and happiness, whether it's watching something with my kids or feeling really connected with somebody, a friend or whatnot. And then I get up and my body feels looser and my body feels better. Is that, kind of what you're talking about, how we can actually deal with what we're actually really physically feeling without the emotional pain on top of it, or the negative thinking on top of it?
Well, they dance together all the time. And what I like, there's a form of therapy I talk about in the book, because Sarno in his books talks about repressed rage. And I'm like a really practical person. I'm like, okay, I can understand that. So how do you get the rage out? And he'll have people journal. And I'm like, that's probably not good enough. And there's actually a form of psychotherapy. It's got this long name. It's called intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy. Well, what does it mean? It's basically get the rage out. And the theory behind it is when we're children, we want to bond with our parents. In fact, it's essential that we bond with our parents because they keep us alive. They feed us, they clothe us, they house us. And when we feel pain, right? I mean, bad things happen for all of us. I got beaten up every day by my older brother. But, children go through parents' divorce. They go through molestation. They go through lots of stress. And when they feel angry, some kids have no problem expressing it, but most kids stuff it. And why do we stuff it? Because we need these people. And we feel then bad about ourselves and turn the rage inward. Like, well, if you feel that, then you must be bad. And children see themselves at the center of the universe. So if something good happens in their family, they sort of think it's because of them. But if something bad happens in their family that they have absolutely nothing to do with, they think it's their fault.
Mm.
And it's that rage and then guilt about the rage that they turn inward that ends up manifesting in these psychophysiological disorders, or, stress comes out in belly pain, stress comes out in headaches.
Well, I was always taught spiritually, like, because I grew up in a not religious home. I grew up in a spiritual home, that thought is creative, right? So where our attention lies, or whatever it may be, any kind of trauma or thought or energy that it can manifest in your body. And I was thinking, when I started to feel some weird symptoms of my MS, I had the most traumatic 6 months of my life. Like, everything was wrong. My mom had cancer again. There was all this stuff. And the next thing I know, boom, there I am. So I think it's so important. What you're saying is that we've kind of known this thing that, like, be careful, right? Of what's up
That's
here.
so common that stresses start to stack
Hmm.
and then they overwhelm you. And whatever vulnerabilities you had, that it begins to come out. And your vulnerability, in part, was your immune system, that it become really overactive and unbalanced. In the book, I talk about emotional freedom journaling. I love this so much. And it's what you do is you take your life, Psalm 71, and make a page for every 5 years. So 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and so on. And draw a line down the middle of the page. And on the left, whatever you remember. Well, what was awesome during that 5-year period? And then on the right side, what was awful during that 5-year period? So 0 to 5, I remember it vividly, standing at the stove making fudge with my grandfather, who's a candy maker. I loved him. But then on the other side, I'm getting beaten up every day. And so you do that, and it gives you a really good picture of how awesome your life has been, but also how stressful. And then, like in Sarno's work, you can journal how it made you feel and be brutally honest, or actually see a therapist that does treatments like ISTDP that I mentioned, or I'm a huge fan of EMDR,
Me too.
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. But I do it differently. That I have people, yes, go through the trauma and do the eye movements, and then I have them get the rage out. And I found it to be so effective to just rebalance your nervous system. And you have to be careful who you do rage therapy with, because you don't want to do it with someone that, is already unbalanced. But I have just personally found it to be fascinating and helpful.
Yeah, Christina and I, not everybody can do this, but that exercise we've sort of been in ourselves. We're both writing our memoirs. And in going through my life, to be quite honest, like, tracking my mental state and emotional state through my childhood up to when I was 20, when I was diagnosed with MS, it was like no surprise to me that I received that diagnosis in a way. Like, just seeing the way things like stacked, like you said, and led to that point. And then, to live with something chronic can weigh you down in all of the ways, but in hearing you speak about the doom loop and sort of making sense and kind of giving you a bird's eye view of what's been going on, and then the healing loop, I feel, and through the process of writing the book, it's almost empowered me in a way of just, at least when you have an understanding, that I can already feel my nervous system calm down, and the understanding that there's modalities and ways to almost get a little power back over this. Because, when you have something like MS that's unpredictable, you can wake up every day in fear of just not knowing what you're going to be facing with your body that day and feeling very out of control. So I think, you having this information, these tools in this book is so helpful for people like me and Christina and people living with chronic illness, because you can feel so out of control all the time and so hopeless.
No question about that. And, the one thing I would say is win or learn every day, that you be the student, not just the subject, that you're not your illness, and be as curious as you can be. I had this to eat and that triggered a flare, or I had this fight and that triggered a flare, or I went to bed a half an hour earlier last night and I had so much more energy today. And I'm working on this national brain health initiative. And I'm so excited about it because obviously we're going the wrong way for our brain and mental health. But I'm trying to get everybody to ask themselves this one question every day. Is what I'm doing now good for my brain or bad for it? And if you can answer that question with information and love of yourself, love of your family, love of the reason you believe you're on the planet, it changes everything. And I have a friend, a really close friend that I love dearly, who has MS and was going into a wheelchair. And then she decided that she was going to radically change her diet. And she actually got a master's degree in nutrition. And she had her MRI, which showed a lot of the scar tissue. And 10 years later, it was dramatically better. And she actually never went to the wheelchair, mostly through diet and hyperbaric oxygen. And I get so excited about that. And when we just think of our food, it's like, that contributes, right? If your gut's not healthy, 60% of your immune system is in your gut. And if that's not healthy, and so, for example, children who had a lot of ear infections and they had a lot of antibiotics, well, their gut's not as healthy because what do antibiotics kill? They kill gut bugs, right? Your microbiome has 100 trillion bugs, and they make neurotransmitters and they support your immunity and they detoxify your body. It's like, if that's not right, you'll never be right. And we were sold this lie that alcohol is a health food. But in reality, alcohol is a disinfectant and it kills gut bugs. And so if I had an autoimmune problem, I don't drink anyways, just because I've seen tens of thousands of alcohol affected scans. I don't want my brain to be older than I am. It's like we could go through the list of all these things that are bad for our brain that a lot of people think are actually good for us.
Yeah, well, when you say that, sorry, Christina.
Oh, I was just gonna, because I was thinking I'm also a cancer survivor, and I remember when I was going through cancer, the big thing was to make sure that you had alkalinity in your body, that it was alkaline and not acidic, because of that. And that brings me to kind of like, I did it for a while. You know what I mean? Like, life happens, and you're like, yes, I'm gung ho, I'm macrobiotic, and I'm, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I don't, I eat kale, and then after a few years, I was like, I can't eat macrobiotics anymore. So here I am now with MS, and I know the importance of what goes in, but a lot of the diets that I'm seeing are, I'm a vegetarian, so they're very more meat-based and stuff. I just don't know really what to do now as far as that's concerned.
Well, I think you start with that one question.
Yeah.
Is this good for my brain or bad for it? Because
Mhm.
you can be a vegetarian and live on spaghetti and potato chips, as one of my vegetarian doctors did in the clinic.
Yeah, no.
And
Can't live on potato chips.
you know, because vegetables, generally, they're good for your brain. And fruit, generally, that's good for your brain. It's just living with that question. And if you go to an extreme, you can get tired of it. But what I find, it's like, okay, what do you really want? And when people ask me, what do I really want? Because I love Rocky Road ice cream, but it doesn't love me. It hates me. And what I really want is energy and memory and clarity and independence and passion and purpose. That's what I want. So when I think of Rocky Road ice cream, it's like, oh, it doesn't get me what I want. I had this fun experience a couple of weeks ago. I was at this event, and I sat next to Lisa Trout. And Lisa and her husband, Kenny, they own Justify. So Justify is the racehorse that won the Triple Crown.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat next to her, and I'm like, would you ever feed Justify junk food? And she looked at me like I was an idiot. But she knew my work, so she humored me. And she goes, no. I said, would you ever get him drunk? She laughed. She said, no. I said, would you ever get him stoned? And she rolled her eyes at me. And I said, why wouldn't you give him junk food, alcohol, or get him stoned? And she was deadly serious. She looked at me and she said, he would never live up to his potential.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man. Are you listening, guys and dolls?
Wow.
And yet, and Drew Carey said this best. I loved, he was like really overweight and lost a lot of weight and kept it off. And when I heard this quote from him, I knew he was going to stay healthy. He said, eating crappy food isn't a reward. It's a punishment. And then I'm like, oh, he gets it.
Yeah.
Right? The doing the right thing so you have energy is not because you should do it. It's because it fits your goals of energy, memory, clarity, passion, purpose.
Mm-hmm. And it's an act of self-love, right?
It's an act of love.
Support for Messy comes from Honey Love. You know what Honey Love is? It's love for your bosoms, for your body. This product is so wonderful and comfortable and the breathable, and that's what we want, right? Especially in the summer because it's hot AF out there. And I absolutely love it because I can't do underwires. I can't do things like that. So Honey Love recently launched their new Cloud Embrace bra, which sold out in days, guys. So get on it. It's a modern, wireless, which I just said I love, t-shirt bra with sturdy, lightly padded foam cups that feel like a cloud against your skin. It's wireless. For people who love underwire, it's wireless. This style is bound to sell out again, so don't wait. And Honey Love isn't just about brasiers. They've got shapewear, tanks, leggings that are just as comfortable and supportive. Honey Love's best-selling Superpower Short is a must-have. It has targeted compression technology that distinguishes between areas where you want more support and areas you need less compression. Plus, the best part is it won't ever roll up or down thanks to this flexible boning hidden in the side seams. Hidden, guys. Treat yourself to the most comfortable and innovative bras on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/messy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off, which is honeylove.com/messy. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in bras with Honeylove. Support for Messy comes from AGZ. So we've discussed ad nauseum my nauseum of not being able to sleep. And I am not a take a sleeping pill kind of person. I want to be alert. I want to know that something goes on in my house. And this AGZ nighttime drink is designed to support restful, restorative sleep with clinically studied key ingredients, including adaptogens, herbs, and minerals. AGZ is a melatonin-free formula that supports the body's natural sleep cycle. It's so important to sleep. You don't understand that when you have insomnia, it really affects your brain. And if you were listening to any of our podcasts recently, the brain has got a lot to do with the rest of your health. So you want to keep that guy rested and in good shape. You know I love my AG1s in the morning. It picks me up, gets me going with all the best stuff in the world from the planet Earth. It's incredible. So this is their nighttime drink. You know what's really yummy about AGZ? They have mixed berry flavor, chocolate mint flavor, and chocolate. You can enjoy cold, room temperature, or warm. And also, I'm noticing you also get a frother. Start taking your sleep seriously with AGZ. Head to drinkag1.com/messy to get a free welcome kit with the flavor of your choice, which is what I just said, mixed berry, chocolate mint, or chocolate, which also includes a 30-day supply of AGZ. And again, I'm saying it again because I like the word, a frother, free. That's drinkag1.com/messy.
In the book, there's a whole change your brain, change your pain diet. And it starts with whatever you eat or drink, do you love it? And does it love you back?
And I think that's a really good, wonderful question to have in your back pocket, because I think, like what Christina was saying, right? Sometimes being told that you have to overhaul your whole life and your diet and the way that you live can feel very overwhelming. People can sort of go full force and crash and burn out. But if you look at it almost as just like a day-to-day thing, a moment-to-moment, a meal-to-meal thing of just being able to ask that question, I know for myself, I think I would be able to stick with something a lot better if it wasn't feeling like this is the plan and you got to stick to it. And you just are, you're already dealing with a chronic illness. You're already very overwhelmed, and being given all of these supplements and all these things just feels like I don't even know how I'm going to handle it all, as opposed to just, okay, I wake up, this breakfast, do I love it? Does it love me back? Things like that. I could find myself sticking to things a lot more thinking that way.
I remember when I got my macro chefs. I know that sounds really bougie and posh, but
good for you.
It had to happen for the time. And I did it for 3 years. But I remember saying, well, can I have pizza sometimes? And the girl looks at me and goes, food is not your entertainment. It's your medicine. And it really bummed me out because I was like, sometimes I want to be entertained by the delectable delights in my mouth. So in saying that, how do you find that balance when if you do mess up, like.
My wife, Tana, wrote a cookbook called The Brain Warrior's Way Cookbook, and I love it so much. And I have a sweet tooth, and she's just got great desserts. And she just rehabs recipes so that you can have pizza, but you're not going to have Domino's or Papa John's, because that very well may send you into a flare.
Mm-hmm.
But
I can't eat pizza now because of ball of trauma.
But there are different ways to think. But ultimately, we have to get our mind to help us. I'm not depriving myself. of anything. What
Yeah.
I'm depriving myself of is illness. And when I think like that, I love eating healthy. That, I
Yeah.
always go back to what do I really want? And I have this one patient, and I was just failing, failing, failing. And it was pissing me off, quite frankly, because I like being successful with my patients. But I kept with it with him. And then, do you either watch the movie City Slickers
Yeah.
with Billy Crystal? I love that movie. And, Billy Crystal plays this guy who's having a midlife crisis, and he goes to, I don't know, Colorado to a dude ranch, and he's talking to an old guy. He said, the old guy goes, you just have to know the one thing. And Billy wants to know, what's the one thing? And then the old cowboy dies, and he gets all freaked out because he doesn't know the one thing. Well, I discovered the one thing. And in my patient, it's his 4-year-old was in charge of his life because he wanted what he wanted when he wanted it. And that's why we were not making progress.
That's called a
And
Sagittarius, by the way. But go ahead. Sorry.
so here's the one thing is when you do the right thing, feel good about yourself. And when you
Yeah.
do the wrong thing, kick your ass. It's like, I have 6 children. And, when they were 4, they don't get to choose all the things they do because, I believe that's why we have parents. We have to discipline lovingly, firm and kind, our inner children that are trying to run the show and see, you can't have ice cream as deprivation, as opposed to when you do have it, you're depriving yourself of what you actually want. And in a society where 75% of us are overweight and 45% of us are obese, there are a lot of children running the show.
Yeah.
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 Can I say something that makes my heart like really happy? My father just passed away a couple months ago, and he loved Rocky Road ice cream. And when I was a kid, that was the only ice cream he had in the house. And when he passed, I got some. And I'm so sorry, doctor. It's really gross, but I love you. But I ate it. I ate a whole bowl for my dad. And I was like, Bob Applegate, this is for you. But no, I mean, it's
I
just,
love that.
it's not gross. I just have a weird palate
That's funny.
for marshmallows.
I wanted to
Things.
I wanted to
Sorry.
I wanted to ask you because we actually had some listeners write in some questions as well, and to talk to you about, where you're saying that sometimes we can be doing things to, we think helping our symptoms or what we're dealing with, but they could actually be harming us. A lot of people with MS take ADHD medication for fatigue. And sort of to kind of help them, whether it's, they say to get out of bed or motivate. What are your feelings, if any, on this? Because, it's hard to tell somebody, who says this is what gives me the energy to do things, but, maybe we're not taking a look at the full picture. Is that harmful for them?
So if they actually have ADHD, it's probably helping 2 things. It's helping their focus, their ability to stick with whatever they're trying to do, and it will help their energy. If you don't have ADHD and you're just using it for energy, for some people, it'll decrease their appetite, which might not be good. It might impact their sleep. It might make them more irritable. I'm a huge fan of paraxanthine, which is actually a caffeine metabolite, but it doesn't give you jitters, doesn't make you pee, and it doesn't keep you up. Fan of paraxanthine. I'm also a fan of modafinil. And modafinil, I've actually used it to treat some of my ADD patients that didn't do well on stimulants. It's FDA approved for narcolepsy, but it's also approved for daytime sleepiness. And that could be helpful as well.
My
That's
daughter has
crazy.
ADHD and she's 14, and I have never put her on any meds for that. We just try to kind of do focus exercises or conversations. But do you think for a 14-year-old, one of those would be okay? Or could that mess with her brain development since she's not at 25 yet?
So I'm also a child psychiatrist, and I learned a book called Healing ADD. And if somebody really has ADD, I'm a fan of a trial of medication. There's this lore going around that, well, if you put them on medicine, you're a bad parent.
Hmm.
Well, the research suggests that if you medicate them, their brain actually develops in a more normal way.
Interesting. So this has been totally the opposite than what I've been told by
Yes. It's
everybody.
totally the opposite.
Okay.
And I own a supplement company. I always think first do no harm, use the least toxic, most effective treatment. And so I also don't think ADD is one thing. People go to addtypetest.com. I think it's 7 different things. You can sort of figure out if you have it and what type you have. Here are the supplements that help. But if they don't work, well, absolutely put you on Ritalin or Adderall or Vyvanse, because the goal should never be medicine or not. The goal should always be, well, what's their best functioning? And often you
Mm.
find,
Okay.
when I see a child that has ADD, I'm looking at their mom and I'm looking at their dad, and I'm like, okay, where is it coming from? Because it's a very heritable
Yeah.
disorder. And
Mm-hmm.
treating everybody in the family that has it just makes the family work better.
Okay. I love this. Thank you so much.
I'd love to ask you a question too about my child. So my son last summer had ADEM. It was a very severe case. He was in the hospital for 6 weeks. He had steroids, plasmapheresis, Rituxan, IVIG. When he was finally was able to sort of regain physical strength. He was on an epinephrine drip for a while. When he was able to regulate his blood pressure on his own, he went into a severe state of psychosis for a couple of weeks. He had insomnia. It was a lot of trial and error. He's a miracle. And, we're here about a little over a year later. The only thing that we left on for just a couple of weeks after was propranolol because he had a lot of perseveration. And that has calmed down. He's not on anything now. However, I was told by his neurologist that a great deal of children that come out of ADEM come out of it with ADHD. It's not showing up in his work or his focus, but it's a lot of impulse of just expressing himself. A lot of it is love, which is wonderful. And I try to be mindful as his parent to not make him feel bad about that. However, I just wanted to ask you, is this something I should continue to look down possibly for medication for him? Or is it too soon since him having ADEM to kind of really see how things settle?
Well, you might look at his brain, right? I mean, to
It's
see
still inflamed. He had an MRI a couple of weeks
what's the
ago.
impact. It's like Christina with your daughter who has ADHD. I'm a psychiatrist. I belong to the only medical specialty that never looks at the organ they treat. And at Amen Clinics, we do a study called SPECT, which is different than an MRI. An MRI looks at the anatomy. We look at the physiology. So MRI looks at structure. We look at function. And is the function of his brain low, which maybe putting him in a hyperbaric chamber would be really helpful for him, just to help rebalance the blood flow to his brain. If your daughter has low frontal lobe activity, it's sort of not fair to support that. either with medication or supplements or whatever.
Mhm.
It's a big thing I've learned so we've done almost 300,000 scans on
Oh,
people
geez.
from 155 countries. And the big lesson, a couple of big lessons, but the biggest one is most psychiatric problems are not mental health issues. They're brain health issues. Get your brain healthy, well, then your mind will follow. And it changes everything because nobody wants a mental illness. Everybody wants a better brain. So what if mental health was brain health? And it's part of this sort of national initiative we're working on.
Support for Messy comes from Calm. If your sleep schedule's been all over the place recently, you are not alone. The shift into the fall routines, back to school, can be a perfect time to reset your nights, starting with Calm. Calm is the #1 app for sleep and meditation, giving you the power to calm your mind and change your life. Look, we all face unique challenges in our daily lives, and that's why Calm offers a wide range of content and programs to help you navigate life's ups and downs, including guided meditations. They have sleep meditations and calming music. They have grounding exercises. They're great for helping you reset and relax when you start to feel overwhelmed. Like if you're about to go into a party or a social setting and you're nervous, play it in your car. They also have expert-led talks that help you handle grief, improve self-esteem, improve your relationships, and more. They have over 2 million 5-star reviews, and they just can help you stress less, sleep more, and live better. Calm has an exclusive offer just for listeners of our show. Get 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/messy. This is an amazing value. Go to calm.com/messy for 40% off with unlimited access to Calm's entire library. Calm.com/messy and tell Calm you heard about them from us. We had another question from a listener. Does edible THC impact a fully mature brain differently than smoking? Is it harmful? Because, a lot of people with MS can take, THC for spasticity, because sometimes spasticity drugs can make you feel super loopy or more tired or things like that.
So smoking marijuana is actually worse than smoking cigarettes. They've done comparisons head to head. And I think for somebody who needs it, where there's a really good medical reason, I would use edibles to not damage your lungs. And there are lots of different kinds. And when I was growing up, it was like 4% THC in marijuana, and now it's 25%.
Right.
I think you have to be careful, thoughtful. For some people, it gives them energy. For some people, it demotivates them.
Mm-hmm.
So I published a study on 1,000 marijuana users. Every area of their brain was lower in blood flow. But when my mother-in-law had lung cancer and she wasn't eating, it helped her eat.
Yeah.
I think we have to get away from this lie that marijuana is innocuous, because it's not innocuous, especially for teenagers. But Xanax is not innocuous, and yet it's legal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol is clearly not innocuous. I think we just need to have reverence and respect for it.
Yeah. What about neuroplasticity? Because I think that's what, we all hold on to, of the possibility of regaining any function in our bodies. And, I think that some people worry that fear that it's not real or possible to actually, create. And I know you say that neuroplasticity will either help or hurt you. It just kind of follows your lead. So if you're intentional in trying to build new neural pathways and trying to, whether it's help your gait or whatever kind of function you have get back, is that possible?
So neuroplasticity is real. Your brain continues to remodel itself every day. And if you put it in a healing environment, it can grow stronger. And if you put it in a toxic environment, it's going to go weaker. Every day, your hippocampus, underneath your temples and behind your eyes, a very important part of your temporal lobes. It's actually Greek for seahorse because it's shaped like a seahorse. Every day you make about 700 new baby seahorses every day, or hippocampal stem cells. And is your behavior growing them, or is it murdering them? Is it shrinking them? I get very excited that your brain can be better. We do a podcast, my wife and I, Change Your Brain Every Day is what it's called. And we just filmed one last week with NBA superstar Julius Randle. And I have his scan last year, smoking a lot of pot. And I have it just 2 weeks ago, dramatically better. Because
Really?
he took much better care of his brain. That's so exciting. Another one of the huge lessons I've learned is you're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, and I can prove it. Now, you can also make it worse, and we see people doing that all the time.
Wait, I was going to say something. So, okay, so I go to a chiropractor who does DNFT. Do you know about directional non-force therapy?
I don't.
So there's no cracking, and it really works with the nervous system. And he will not do a session on you if you have smoked pot, which I just found really interesting that, like, for some reason in the brain, he cannot read it because it's doing something, which, but hey, smoke pot, everybody, if you want to smoke pot. But don't go to my chiropractor because he won't work on you. I just thought it was really interesting. Now it makes sense.
Well, it's hard. And, and we've been told it's innocuous, and it's just a lie. And the people who suffer with our societal lies are our children and our teenagers, because as it's legal recreationally now in 24 states. So people go, well, it's a plant. And it's like, there are a lot of poisonous plants.
Yeah.
I just want us to be thoughtful, careful. And psilocybin is going to go the same way. That everybody's all excited about psilocybin and magic mushrooms, and visits to emergency rooms for psilocybin psychosis have tripled in the last 3 years, because the lore is, oh, this is a new treatment for depression. Oh, this is a new treatment for PTSD. And I'm just like, I've seen this party before. I saw it with benzos are innocuous. Clearly they're not. Alcohol's
So not.
Food. Clearly they're not. Opiates, well, pain is the fifth vital sign. And I write about opiates in the book. And I'm like, yes, they help short term, but they piss off your white blood cells and they make pain worse in the long run. So if you really want to make your pain worse, go on opiates long term.
Going back to your book, what happens to a brain physically when you don't deal with trauma?
So I talk about the diamond pattern. So on SPECT, I published a number of studies showing what adverse childhood experiences do to the brain. And what they do is they flame that suffering circuit. So they cause increased activity in an area of the brain called the anterior cingulate gyrus. It's sort of like the brain's gear shifter. It lets you go from thought to thought, move from idea to idea, be flexible, go with the flow. Childhood trauma activates that, which means you think about it, that you're worried, you're rigid. trauma also causes you to be a bit suspicious. We do cognitive testing if you come to one of our clinics. And one of the tests is you read facial expressions. And people who have trauma, they're really good at reading facial expressions, but they're masterful at reading negative faces. And so we see, out of, if you're with your partner, for example, and he or she gives you 10 faces, you're going to really focus on the 2 where they were upset.
Mm.
So you often read negativity, and having a bias toward negativity increases your risk of a lot of psychiatric problems.
So what are the things that somebody can do about, like, if they this is the brain that they have, these are the habits they have? I know you talk about this in the book at great length, but could you give us sort of any example? Because I know there's a lot of us here in this community that live in the doom loop, and we want a way out.
Well, and the first thing is to just know it exists.
Yeah.
It's to know how it works and how it's messing you up. Because at any point in the doom loop, you can step off. And so if I know that these foods trigger a relapse or trigger pain, I need to see them as the enemy. If I know not sleeping, I'm much more likely to relapse, I prioritize sleep. If I know I don't have to believe every stupid thing I think, oh my God, that's so freeing. And I have a great strategy in the book. There's a whole list of sort of anti-negativity strategies, but one of my favorite ones is the rule of 12. So I took my wife to Paris for her 50th birthday a number of years ago. And I just noticed whenever we would travel, if something went wrong, it could just sort of mess up a day or two. And so we were going for 2 weeks, and I'm like, 12 things are going to go wrong. Let's promise ourselves we're not going to get upset until the 13th thing goes wrong. And then we could throw stuff, scream, really act badly. And 4 things went wrong, and nobody was upset. And then I posted on my social channels, I did a video on the rule of 12 and got like 10 million views. And so many of my patients find it helpful. It's like, I don't have to attach to everything that's happened in my life. I'm competent and I'm flexible. And the more flexible I am, the more psychologically healthy I am. Then I'm not going to get upset until the 12th thing has gone.
I'm going to put that up in my house.
I'm putting it up.
I
I'm
love
putting it up
that.
everywhere.
I
I could
know,
do like
that's-
needlepoint or something, and we could have like a thing that you hang up on the wall.
Yeah, that's a great motto. That is a
We love
great
that.
thing to yeah, because and then it does show you, like you said, that you're flexible and you're adaptable and
you're competent.
you're
Every
confident.
day you win or you learn. And then give your mind a name, just so you can gain psychological distance from the nonsense in your head.
Yes.
So I named my mind after my pet raccoon. When I was 16, I had a pet raccoon, loved her, but she was a troublemaker. She TP'd my mother's bathroom. It was a very bad day. She ate all the fish out of my sister's aquarium. Another bad day. She'd leave raccoon poo in my shoes. And that's my mind. It just stirs up trouble.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny. My mom, when I was a kid, my mom used to say, your mind is a wonderful thing to waste. And I knew what she meant by that, which was this stuff that goes on in there is bogus a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful thing to waste.
And so you don't attach to it and you begin to see it like the weather. And you're just so much happier if you don't believe every stupid thing your mind generates.
I feel so much calmer even just hearing you talk about that, just like you said, sometimes when I go to meditate, and the thoughts are really strong, I'll look at them as like the ticker on the bottom of a news channel. Like they're there, but I can focus on the news anchor and not what all that kind of information down there. That's really wonderful advice. All right, doctor, before we let you go, because we could talk to you for all day. The last question we wanted, which is the most important one because of all of your knowledge and all of your experience. If you had MS, how would you live your life every day? What would you eat? What would you choose to do? What are the biohacking things you would incorporate in your life? What would you focus on?
So if I had MS, the first question I would ask myself is, why is my immune system mad? And I would get a stool test and I would optimize my gut. It'd be the very first thing. I'd go, oh, I bet you have leaky gut. I would check for the toxins in my body. I would do a heavy metal test. I'd do an environmental toxin test. I mean, I'd really go and hunt down why my immune system is mad at me. And I would probably eat more garlic, onions, and mushrooms, not magic mushrooms, but
lion's mane. We got you.
because they're help to soothe your immune system. I will always, for the rest of my life, ask myself, is this good for my brain or bad for it? I would get in a hyperbaric chamber just because I've seen that decrease inflammation, increase blood flow to the brain. In all of my books, I talk about bright minds. You want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it. You have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors. I'd go after each one of them. And I'd be very mindful. I mean, I am of what I eat, only things that serve me. And I would try at least for 3 months. I'd go on a gluten-free, dairy-free, corn, soy, sugar-free diet and just go, does it make any difference for me?
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference for everybody, but
Right.
it makes a difference for enough people that I would absolutely just be mindful and curious.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and your expertise and your care and your curiosity that is helping millions of people just, due to that. It's the key to life. And if you just don't mind, before you go, we pull a card from this deck that I have at every episode. And it usually pertains to what we talk about, but it leaves us with a little bit of wisdom before we let you go. For everything you have missed, you have gained something else. And for everything you gain, you lose something else.
And
Wow.
so it is.
And so it is.
This show is executive produced by Christina Applegate, Jamie-Lynn Sigler, and Allison Bresnick. Our audio engineer is Josh Windisch.
And if you want to show us some love, don't forget to leave the show a rating or review. Hi, it's Jamie. Thanks for listening. I just want to let you know I am a paid spokesperson for Novartis, but this podcast is independent from my collaboration with Novartis.